Hi, I'm Josh.
And I'm Derek. We're both experienced founders and CEOs of B2B SaaS companies, and now we're your hosts.
In today's world, getting accurate information about B2B SaaS products is tough. User review sites are manipulated, and research reports are often wildly inaccurate or paid for. That's why we're here, to bring you information that no one else does.
We go straight to the software companies themselves to break down their products, show you a demo, and give you our honest opinions. Whether you're a software buyer, investor, or user, this podcast is for you.
Okay, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Talk Sassy to Me. Today we have Seth King from RF Smart, and let's just jump right in, Seth. So, Seth, why don't you tell us about your role at RF Smart and a little bit about what RF Smart does?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me, Josh and Derek. So I've been here about 8 years. I was an individual contributor for some time, but now I'm responsible for leading all of our customer acquisition. So acquiring new customers of RF Smart out in the space in the NetSuite ecosystem, as well as leading our team that keeps up with all of our customer retention. So without more than 2,000 customers, it's become a busy space, right? Customer acquisition at this point, in customer retention, when you get to 2,000, becomes even more important. Retention outweighs acquisition at some point. But what RF Smart does is we offer supply chain solutions that are specifically built for ERPs. And when we talk about the NetSuite space, we're talking about warehouse management. So you think of moving inventory around a distribution center to a 3PL, moving inventory in your retail store, to things like shipping, right? So we launched a new shipping product about a year and a half ago. So at the end of the WMS process, you've got to ship the package with your carriers and FedEx. So we optimize that shipping process, as well as things like printing. And then our most robust customers are getting to things like robotics and automation and machine integration on the high end of things. So very scalable solution, purpose-built for NetSuite customers.
Awesome. And maybe we can just talk a little bit about your market a little bit deeper. So on the website, obviously you guys tout NetSuite as that's one of your plug and play solutions from an ERP perspective, but just help us understand the total landscape. I know you guys are working with other ERPs other than NetSuite as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the company didn't start as a supply chain solution. Is what's funny. It started back in '82, and our founder, George Morales, he had backgrounds at Shell Corporation, in the technology space back in the 70s, 80s. So he was always in technology. And when we started, a lot of our time was spent just in general technology deals. And then we first launched a supply chain product in JD Edwards. So when we talk about, the ERPs we support 4 different ERPs. And JD Edwards was the first. And I think it started as like the word is it was a parking lot, like barcode scan to get inside of a parking lot was the first product we created. But we took a unique approach over the years. So fast forward to today, we did not build one WMS solution that we were going to build connections to ERPs. We've built different products for those different ERPs. So when it comes to our sales team, our implementation team, our product development team, it's actually separate RF Smart products as well. It's not one WMS that plugs in all of these different ERPs.
Gotcha. And, maybe today we focus a bit on the NetSuite one, but just help us understand, if you're comfortable sharing, kind of what percentage of your customers are in NetSuite versus some of the other ERPs.
Yeah, so I'll kind of share a funny story. So when I started, it was 8 years ago. We were probably 135, 140 employees. Today, we're around 450 plus. And the lion's share of the headcount we have added has been to support our NetSuite business. So it's fair to say probably north of 80% of our customers are in that NetSuite space. It is certainly the fastest growing. Our COO always likes to joke, ERPs never die. So when you think of on-premise solutions like JD Edwards, it's not being sold anymore, but those customers still exist, but you're not acquiring very many at the end of the day. Our NetSuite business is where all of our growth is. NetSuite just being the big ERP it is, we still feel like there's a lot of market saturation to be had too. With 40,000 NetSuite customers, if we've got over 2,000, certainly they don't all own inventory and supply chain, but we still feel like there's a lot of market opportunity inside of that NetSuite ecosystem. And what we do well is knowing NetSuite very well. So our consultants, many of them are NetSuite certified consultants. They don't just know our smart WMS at the end of the day.
Let's dive into kind of feature functionality. And what we want the audience to hear is kind of, let's say it's someone who has a different tool in place or no tool in place. What are the different features and functions that you guys offer? And then also help us understand, are these native to your UI? Are these native to NetSuite? Is it a combination? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Clients come to us at various points in their journey. Some of them come to us when they're evaluating NetSuite because maybe they're replacing QuickBooks and Fishbowl, and they're looking for that next ERP, and they're going, well, I need to replace QuickBooks with NetSuite, but what's going to replace Fishbowl, which is another scanning solution out there, down market. So we may get brought in by a partner or by NetSuite, and for this customer, they're replacing a solution. For another customer, they're coming from paper in QuickBooks, and this is their first WMS solution. So they run that evaluation very differently than a customer leaving a solution. And then it's a big competitive space. So certainly we have customers that are migrating off of competitors, and that solution looks very different. And the reason being is, the person coming from paper probably doesn't know the questions to ask and how to evaluate. The person coming from another solution knows where the pitfalls are and the gaps are in that system. So they've kind of honed in on those areas. So how the evaluation looks, the functionality a customer is looking for varies based on that space. But when it comes to where we see most customers fit, like I'd say the lion's share, the majority of them are looking for what I'd call basic WMS operations. So they're looking to have a scanner in the hand to optimize, well, how do I receive purchase orders from my vendors? Many of them are looking to try and eliminate tribal knowledge. So maybe Derek works in the warehouse and Derek puts stuff away, but if Derek's sick, where's the stuff? Derek put it away. Derek's not here. So they look to turn on things like bins inside of NetSuite to eliminate tribal knowledge. So then you get into put away and space optimization. But most of the basic movements are around receipts in, product on the shelf. It's a big manufacturing space as well. So a lot of manufacturers, all the way through to fulfillment, pick, pack, ship from a feature function standpoint.
Awesome.
Yeah, one question I had for you, Seth, is the NetSuite space. You can kind of have a very small business with just a couple pieces of inventory. You can go all the way up to scaling for companies that are shipping thousands and thousands of orders a day and need pretty comprehensive solutions. So how have you kind of managed that within R Smart to be able to kind of hit the feature function across all of the mid-market there?
Yeah, scalability is really important. I always use the analogy of let's not swing a sledgehammer at a nail, right? But sometimes you need a sledgehammer for that customer's requirements. And scalability has been one thing we certainly talk about here. So, we have customers that might be spending less than $6,000 a year with us because they have basic requirements. This might be this person's first warehouse. And you'll see later as I show a video, then we have customers running robots around their warehouse. So it varies very differently. So what we've done from a pricing structure perspective is we've allowed the customer to be able to kind of pick a la carte the things that they need. But when you get more up market, we've bundled things together. So from a commercial standpoint, the customer's not purchasing the things they're not going to find value out of. And when they do need the value, they're getting the benefit and the cost benefit to purchasing more than maybe an individual. It's similar to, I think of how NetSuite packages and prices, right? They have different tiers, and it's a similar processing from a tier perspective, which unlocks more capability. If I give a specific example, our shipping product has kind of an entry level that can be self-implemented by a customer. We have an advanced level and an enterprise level. So that entry level is probably, I just need some labels for FedEx, UPS, USPS. That high-end label is now custom rules, EDI integration, customer-specific labels, special hazmat requirements. So again, customer that doesn't need that stuff doesn't need to pay for it, but we provide that scalability and kind of upgrade path as well as they need it unlocked.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of an interesting choice. And it sounds like at the very beginning of the company, the choice was made to build a product specific to each of the ERPs that you support. So taking that and going that route, you'd think coming at it externally, building your own product and so that you can have complete control over everything is sort of the obvious choice for most tech companies. But it sounds like building it specific for each ERP was very much the right choice for RF Smart. So how has that led to kind of the product and your place in the market overall?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, right? It's the harder way to develop software because if we develop, like, it'd be one product instead of four products that it is today, right? But at the same time, every one of those ERPs we support have inherent capabilities to do the same things. And we have found that at the end of the day, by becoming experts in the ERP, right? Because the ERP becomes that hub and source of truth. And NetSuite talks a lot about that, right? Eliminate disparate systems, right? So, well, we're not going to follow that messaging if we're just another disparate system plugging in. So we chose strategically to write that product from the ground up. So now it's one version of the truth. There's no syncing. There's not, is my WMS inventory right or is my ERP inventory right? So it became a strategic play. The other ERPs were done long before I was here, and whether or not that was the foresight or whether they stumbled into a great idea, I'm not too sure. But what we have found is it's a great way to build software. It's the harder way to build software, but what we've found is customers appreciate it, and I'll give some specific examples. In the cloud world, a cloud ERP updates every 6 months. In the NetSuite case, with JD Edwards, it was on-prem. So as those ERPs continue to develop, they add a lot of new capabilities and features, and customers want to turn them on. So by being built in the platform, we stay abreast of those changes, and we try to build that stuff into our product. So I've seen things from, I remember when customers were able to move locations down to the line level on sales orders, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I need to pick these lines from this location, these lines from another location. With a separate database, that may be, well, you can't do that in NetSuite, you need to do that in our system. So we have found that not only are we able to keep one version of the truth, but we can also help people maximize more of their ERP investment as well.
That's great. And wouldn't these ERP products have their own WMS platforms? Like, if built on platform, why would someone want to go with an external vendor versus maybe the ERP vendor's module?
Yeah, and I think I'd mentioned that every single ERP we support has an own inherent capability to do this, right? And here we are, we're continuing to grow like crazy from 150 to north of 450 employees in just the time I've been here. So what's the success? What I would say is, all of those ERP providers, regardless of who you name, they're a mile wide and an inch deep, and we are an inch wide and a mile deep in supply chain. And regardless of what the product is, anybody can go write a product to move a box, count a box, pick a box. But with supply chain automation and warehouse management, a lot of it comes down to the consulting side and understanding the language and understanding when and how to put certain strategies into place and to optimize the tool a certain way. So I think that's been a big contributor to our success, is being an inch wide and a mile deep, because a lot of ERP companies are trying to do everything, right? You're trying to do HR software, you're trying to do manufacturing stuff, you're trying to do supply chain stuff, you're trying to do e-commerce website stuff. And it's kind of that old everything, but you're not a master of anything type situation. So we think we're kind of the domain expertise when it comes to supply chain. And specific to that ERP, that's the added kind of cherry on top, is not only do we know WMS really well, but we understand how your ERP works on top of that.
Yeah. And over the years, certainly speak for myself, Derek may agree, but, we understand ERPs do go a mile wide. Some of their functionality can go a mile deep, and some of it goes an inch deep. And there's a spectrum. Obviously, they've got a lot of feature functionality. They're trying to do a lot of things. They're trying to keep everyone in one platform. So there are areas where third-party tools make a lot of sense. So from my perspective, from your guys' competitive advantage, having feature functionality that goes deeper than the source ERP makes a lot of sense. What's the competitive advantage against, not against the ERP itself, so not against NetSuite, is WMS, but other third-party WMSs? You've obviously you've built specifically for NetSuite. You've got NetSuite consultants. Is that it? Are there other things? Why do you guys win against these other third-party tools?
Yeah, so I think at some point, reputation and brand becomes important, and our Smart is a bit of a unicorn in the technology space. And what I mean by that is it's not often you find um, a technology company that's privately funded, debt free, right? So we're not backed by venture capital. We're not having to appease shareholders. So what that means is we can be very selective of the people we do business with, right? Because we're not just trying to drive revenue. At the end of the day, revenue is very important. Um, but I think at some point, once you deliver over and over and over again, you build that reputation, and it's like, okay, maybe they're not the cheapest solution in the space, but they've been known to deliver and get through the hard projects and come out with a happy customer on the other end. And I think we're now at this point where it becomes a flywheel effect, right? It's hard to build this flywheel. To get that first 100 customers is really hard. To get 200 is really hard. But then once you start to get into the thousands, I've sold the same person at 4 different companies, right? Because they were so happy at company one, they left and went to company two and said, nope, out with that, in with our Smart. Then they go to another company. So that flywheel just continues to grow. Because you could talk, every solution out there probably has some feature or capability that's unique, that sets them apart from someone else. But it really depends on the customer looking at the software. That feature may be a great differentiator for them, or they may say, I don't care that you do replenishment so much better. We don't replenish here. That doesn't matter to me at the end of the day. So I do think just being able to deliver time and time again is a part of our reputation. And we're not a perfect company by any means.
Yeah, and just to echo what you said, what I think is important to everyone out there, and obviously decision makers know this, but there's certain categories of software where the risk of failure with it is lower or higher, and the risk of failure with a WMS solution is high. It would cripple your business if you can't ship or you can't receive. A reporting or planning tool may have a lower risk. Obviously, it's important, but it's not going to shut down the business if the implementation doesn't go well. So that makes sense to me. I think you're downplaying some of your feature functionality, but I understand also how brand and reputation are really important. And maybe that dovetails into a question around implementation. So tell us what does that look like? Obviously, there's a spectrum. Every implementation is different, but tell us kind of what people can expect.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to come back. I'll give you a feature function kind of example to to dig in a little bit more there.
Good.
I say all that because at the end of the day in an RFP, I always tell people this. At the end of the day in RFP, everybody's going to check the same box, right? A lot of people check the same box. Can you do counts? Can you do this, right? And sometimes it's hard to differentiate. You can't differentiate well in an RFP, right? And that goes for whether you're an ERP RFP to a WMS to, payroll automation. But I'll take our shipping product, for example. So the way we built our shipping product, we like to say people can tell that people that have worked in warehouses and shipped software are the people that built our product. They're not just ones and zeros, guys. So the way we built that product is our product owner flew to around 40 or 50 customers, and he'd build this product, set up video, GoPro video of these people, watching them use the product. And our goal with shipping was to get it super fast, super configurable, and easy to use. And the joke going around here was we want it easy enough that you could pull your 6-year-old daughter or son in, give them a scanner, and say, here's a pick ticket, just follow the prompts. And that's where we got it. And a lot of that came down to custom rules engines that we built into our product to allow if-then statements. Some of the tools we built in around being able to automate and map labels to certain customer care requirements, down to the UI. So all of those things became very important. And the funny story is we've actually had customers say, yeah, we got short-staffed and I brought my 10-year-old in and they were shipping packages. So we would literally watch people ship and we go, where'd you get stuck? And then we'd reiterate the software. So that is probably one of our bigger differences. But to move towards implementation varies because we talked about scalability. So, we have projects that span many, many months, and we have projects that I could tell you a customer will quote, I downloaded the bundle and the next day I was receiving a PO on the floor, right? So our implementation varies from a time frame perspective based on the footprint that's coming in place. But it is a managed bundle install. So the way our implementation works is you kind of go through your normal kickoff, and then we install our bundle into your instance. And at that point, our Smart is available in your instance. Really, most of the implementation comes down more to, well, now let's set your printers up and map them that when Josh logs in, this is his printer and this is Derek's printer. And then we do a session on inbound, we do a session on counting, we do a session on outbound. So you have these kind of scheduled sessions. We like to start every implementation with an SRD, and I think that's pretty common practice. And the goal is, how do we uncover all of the surprises early? Like, we do our best in that sales cycle to uncover as many surprises, modifications, scope them out. But it doesn't matter how many of these you do. You may do an evaluation, and then at the kickoff, there's 4 people in the room that were not part of that evaluation. One of them goes, "Did you think about blank, or did you consider our one exception for that one customer?" And like, "Oh, we didn't talk about that." Well, you want to find that out in the second week of the implementation, not 2 weeks before go live when you're training them on UAT picking. So that's our goal, and we do those on site. So supply chain and inventory is very tangible. So we think it's important to be on site early with our customers to walk the facility, make sure we don't have any surprises early on. And then from there, it's a series of remote training sessions. Some customers opt to have us on site again. Many of them opt to have us on site during go live, a day before, a day after, to answer any questions in real time.
That's great. That's great. I mean, implementation of any tool is sometimes the most important piece, right? The feature function is one part of it, but how well it's implemented is the other component. So I guess what's been your team's lessons learned in implementing within these other ERPs? How does that end up working? Because it's easy to buy a WMS product, especially it's easy to buy a WMS product that needs to be integrated, that's standalone separately from the ERP. So maybe for someone who's trying to decide if they should go on platform or off platform with a WMS, like what's the difference that our Smart sees with that?
Yeah, so I think a couple of questions in there, kind of lessons learned along the way when it comes to implementations, and then the second one being, on platform versus off platform, what's the right decision? When it comes to lessons learned, I mean, I remember 8 years ago we used to do fixed bid flat bundle installs, right? But the product was much smaller than it wasn't sophisticated. It was more predictable. And then as you start to scale, you start to realize, oh, well, when you get into things like order waves and zones, some person could have 40 strategies to pick and some person could have 3 or 4. And when you get to that fixed bid model, it gets pretty complicated pretty fast, to kind of just keep the same implementation for every single customer. So one of the lessons learned was kind of moving to a T&M. So we do a time and materials model on our implementation side now. And I would say the other one is we used to do all of our implementations remote, and now we put on-site in every single SOW. So it's something that is intangible. And we're like, what we try to do is when people get to the point where they want to negotiate things, we don't want to negotiate the things out that risk their project. So it's not, I want a better cost, just take the on-site out. It's like, well, if we do that, then you're going to add risk to your project. So we do everything we can to keep those big milestone events in, that on-site SRD being a really, really important one. And we have found is if we can keep that in and do it early, the projects go much, much better. And then change management is so big. Change management is such a big topic when it comes to implementing any software. And when you're talking about supply chain software, you're talking about operations people. Like, you're talking about supply chain people out in a warehouse, and you have to have a champion for you internally that's going to own things. You got to identify those super users early. Those were things we didn't do, because if everybody owns it, nobody owns it. So we've learned that you've got to find somebody that's really going to champion it internally for you as well. So those are some of the lessons learned from that perspective. I don't know if there's any follow-up to that before I move to your other question. Yeah, and as far as the other question, so why an outside system versus an internal system? So, let's say it's ABC ERP that the customer has that we're part of. If they have long-term plans to leave that ERP, we're probably not the right fit for them, right? So because we are part of that ERP, we can't just simply pick up and come with you if you're looking to make a change. So if you're unsure about that platform that you're on long-term, we're probably not the best solution. The other space I would say is, if you're looking at warehouse management software, if you're a straight 3PL and all you do is 3PL, probably not the fit for you either, right? There's some specific needs when it comes to how some of those WMSs operate, that get more into financial transactions and how you charge customers for storage and velocity and things like that. And we don't specialize in that area either. So if there's a big market for that, there's dozens of names out there and they specialize in 3PL WMS software. And sometimes those leads will come to us and we have to say, hey, that's not us.
That makes sense. And how about on size, like enterprise kind of customers in the NetSuite space, ones that are bigger than the average NetSuite customer, or shipping many, many thousands of orders a day, or high level of complexity, or a huge warehouse. How does that work in terms of your evaluation?
Yeah, so I was just in California and visiting customers for 7 days, and went to one of our auto part customers out there. They have 27 distribution centers running our smart, hundreds and hundreds of users running our smart, thousands upon thousands of transactions a day. So what we have found is as long as NetSuite scales, our smart scales, right? So if NetSuite scales with the customer, our smart's going to scale with that customer at the end of the day. We're not finding any limitations. Our shipping product, we have customers that are doing millions and millions of packages a year because we price that based on shipping label. So we can track that and see that at the end of the day. And what we have found is the most sophisticated top end of clients are moving more into the automation side of things, not the traditional handheld scanners. And it becomes, well, we want to put a machine in that's going to move all of our inventory around for us. For example, AutoStore is one of those names. And it's basically a giant vending machine for all your inventory. So where we come in is probably pretty different on that scale of customer. They're going to spend millions of dollars to put that in. We become the point that's passing information to and from that machine, saying, here's the items you need to count, the items that need to be put away. And we're using our purpose-built ERP-specific integration because we are a suite app to keep those things in sync to make sure that when releases come out, that integration doesn't break to those machines. So we have customers that are pre-revenue startup. Like you'll see these customers that come in, they're like, we're going to build rockets and we need stuff to do manufacturing. And we just got funding. We don't have a warehouse. $2 billion publicly traded household names that run our smart in the NetSuite space in particular.
Going back to something you said earlier, Seth. So, we just talked a little about enterprise and implementation. Having sold software for many years, sometimes getting someone who's not using the software to use it is an accomplishment or a hurdle for them and for us. And, you mentioned you've got repeat customers, and that's a testament to the brand and the ROI. But what advice do you have for someone who's not using a WMS? So imagine whether they're on NetSuite or a prior system, or an earlier system, aka QuickBooks, but I'm not using a WMS today. What's the advice you'd have for them to help get them over that hump to say like, hey, this is worth it?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to an ROI conversation, and that's where we tend to focus our customers is around the ROI side of things. Because, I've walked into warehouses that I've wondered, like, why are they using our smart? This is like a cage of small inventory, but somebody came in from another company that used it and just felt like they needed it, and they're probably not seeing the ROI. To customers that are still on paper and pen, and like you're way behind the time. So if I put it into buckets, and there was a customer out there, a distributor, I'd say one is like, what's your labor look like, right? Are you having to throw more bodies to get more orders out the door, right? So, and labor is one of the hard things right now, and that's why automation has become so important, is because you're limiting how much labor you need. So if you're trouble keeping staff, turnover in staff, if you always have to pull seasonal staff in, that's probably a big red flag. Like many of our customers come to us the following year and go, we did more packages than we did last year, and we didn't pull in 20 seasonal temp through our peak. So those are big buckets for ROI. And when you think of the average cost of a supply chain worker across the country, full salary, it adds up pretty quick, and you can get your ROI really fast. The second bucket I'd give you is just space. I've walked a lot of warehouses, and many of them, especially in the NetSuite space, it's jam-packed to the gills. And often people don't know what they have. They're not sure what's on the shelf. and they're scared of stockouts, right? They don't want to have stockouts, so they carry what we call cushion inventory. So if you're unsure of how much you got, so you always order extra to have some on hand. That's a cost that's ultimately hitting your books, and you're carrying that cost ongoing. Um, and then shipping costs and efficiency is another one. Like if you're a shipper out there today and you are shipping with one carrier just because you're great friends with that FedEx or UPS rep and they're like, we're going to give you the best rates, you're missing out, right? If we're in a world now where you should be rate shopping multiple carriers, keeping them honest, right? It's loyalty is great from a volume discount, but at the end of the day, the best of breed are rate shopping. So those are some of the buckets, theft, reduction in shrink and loss. And those are all hard costs. And then there's certainly soft costs that come with ROI too. And those are things like overall scalability, right? Can you continue to process more orders out the door without having to add headcount? Employee retention, right? People get frustrated with cumbersome manual processes. Like we actually have a guy that works here, and I'll end on this story on that question, and then see if there's questions. So one of our individuals that work here, his name is Steve, and Steve used to work for this prospect, and it's back when I was a sales rep, and he was championing change internally. We need a warehouse management solution to the board, and the board ultimately shut him down, and Steve quit. Steve left that company and went to another company. And Steve went to this other company in Florida, and sure enough, he called us and says, "Hey, I want RF Smart. I just went through this whole evaluation of this other customer," and he put it in. He's one of our solution consultants today. And guess what happened a month later? That first customer he was at called me and said, "Hey, we just had one of our best people quit because we didn't continue to enhance our operations and get this guy the tools he needed to be successful in his operations role." And then they bought RF Smart. So employee retention becomes a big part as well. A lot of customers are innovating, and if you're not, people want to go work at the places that are innovating, right? That's the fun and exciting stuff.
Awesome. We're going to jump into a demo soon, but tell us something exciting. What's on the roadmap? What do we have to look forward to?
Yeah, so our company has been doing a lot. I've felt crazy busy as of late. So one of the more exciting things we did is we launched that shipping product about a year and a half ago, and then at Sweet World 2 weeks ago, we launched LTL support. So it's funny, like our CEO says, you could do all this data to figure out what you need to build to fill a marketplace, but at some point when enough customers ask, you just build it. And that's what we did with shipping, and then that's ultimately what we did with LTL. So LTL became one of the big investments that we made over the last few bits. Some other things that are exciting, we're going to be some of the video I show you in the automation side. I'm really excited about where that space is going. We're finding customers. You would think that it's only these large billion-dollar companies that are investing in machines and automation to eliminate human interaction. But we're actually finding the $50 million companies are investing in these because you can start with a very small footprint with these things called vertical lift modules. And then we continue to invest in our manufacturing space. So we're doing a lot of fun things in the manufacturing space when it comes to how we can scrap inventory and filling gaps there, to different ways to stage inventory, kind of picking up a fair amount of clients in kind of this process manufacturing space, which is exciting, trying to fill some of the gaps there. And then, like any product, maintenance of the existing product is important, right? We entered the space in 2013. So going back and making sure that the functions that we wrote back in 2013, we're using the latest and greatest that's available to us to make sure that's as performant and as fast as possible. So it's that combination of car maintenance, but also you want the new features as well.
Awesome. Well, let's do it. Let's jump into a demo.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about machine integration and automation, and there's like 3 buckets we're gonna talk about here. So what you're seeing here is a combination of different automation equipment, right? So again, a lot of the reason people are moving to automation are for 2 big reasons. It's space. I'm running out of space. And it's also labor. So one of those pieces is what we call goods to person inventory or person to goods inventory. So there's 2 different types in robotics. This is a customer in the Nevada area, And what you see here are these carts that are effectively driving themselves around the warehouse, right? So imagine a user is standing just in one section of the warehouse. The cart drives up, it parks itself right in front of that bin location of where that inventory is, displays the item that needs to be grabbed on a little tablet screen that you see there. There's a barcode scanner built into that. And then you see all these little lights around these totes. Those totes light up as well. So it's also lighting up the tote of where this product needs to go. So when you think about travel time, 80% of a warehouse worker's time is spent traveling. So the more you can eliminate the steps, the more efficient you get. So the second piece is what you see here is this is an auto store. This is more like a giant vending machine. And this is a goods to person. So they stand here and then literally robots are running on the top of this that you see here, grabbing the inventory items and then serving those up to the consumer at the end of the day. So one of our customers, Max Sporting Goods, it used to take them 6 people 5.5 hours to replenish their retail store because their DC's in the back. One person does it now in 2 hours. And that's just the matter of all of that product coming to that person. And then this last concept is mobile dimensioning. So this is a cuboid scanner that you see here that we integrate back into NetSuite. And basically what this does is it uses LiDAR to take a photo of an item, and then it takes all your items and DIMMs, and you could use a Bluetooth scale, and then pushes all of that information back into NetSuite, into the item master or the item record. And you say, well, what's the important part of that? Well, if you can get to a point where you get all of those item weights and dimensions into the system, you can then pick up value downstream when it comes to things like shipping. So now it can go, well, instead of the user determining what box is best for this particular item, it'll actually go, well, we know the weights and cubes of all these items. We're going to tell the customer what box or the consumer what box to grab to pack into. And then the way shipping costs work now in DIMMs and weights, the tighter you can get that, the less your shipping costs, because that's a real hard cost you're spending at the end of the day. So by upstream maintenance and making that easy, downstream you pick up ROI and lowered shipping costs. And then when you get into things like put away and space, certainly having your items and DIMMs in are important as well. So I feel like that's a fast growing space, and we're probably not as well known for it. People think of us and they think of barcode scanning and scanning barcodes. But we're picking up quite a few of those projects these days. And some of the ones that haven't shown is like on the manufacturing side, automated completions. We're working on a big pet food customer right now that's got kind of these silos of product that auto issue. So we're going to do some of the issuing and completions from an automated fashion as well.
Very cool. Very, very, very cool. Okay. Well, and if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Seth, or RF Smart in general, learn more, get into the sales cycle, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, info@rfsmart.com is the easiest way, but you could visit our website as well. There's kind of a live chat tool on there if you want to ask questions. But what we've found as of late is word gets around and a lot of customers talk. But our website's probably the best way to get a hold of us. Our phone number's on there and emails on there.
Perfect. Any final words? Anything we didn't ask we should have asked?
That's a good question. Good question. That's one of my favorite questions at the end of discovery calls. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have asked?
Yep.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, we talked a lot about our product. We talked a little bit about our company. And both of those things are important. So what I would lead with is if you're a customer out there evaluating supply chain software, your evaluation should be about the product itself and its features and functionalities. That's table stakes. You should also think about, well, who are you actually partnering with at the end of the day? And is that a business that you want to partner with long term? Those are two really big important things. And sometimes the products and the features overweight the who. But I think both of those things are very important. And then the last thing would be, don't solve for your problems today, solve for your problems of the future. So don't look to purchase a solution that meets your requirements today, because you're not going to want to switch a WMS solution in 3 years. You want something that scales with you. So think long term in your requirements. Don't think short term with just what's your challenge of today. Think long term.
All right, Derek, we just heard from Seth. But before we get in our opinion section, I have to do something first. We have to give a big congratulations to Derek. Derek and SCS Cloud, his business, won a very important award at the NetSuite Annual Conference this year. they won Partner of the Year for America. So congratulations, Derek. It's been a long time coming. The whole world should know about that. It is not a small accomplishment, and a real testament to what you guys at SCS Cloud and your NetSuite group have been able to do.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. And it was a great moment, and really appreciate all of our great team members at SCS Cloud and all of our great clients that let us do work for them. So that was super fun. It was a long time in the making. So a nice award to get.
Awesome. All right, back to business. So what'd you think? What'd you think of RF Smart?
I've had experience as well with RF Smart in the NetSuite ecosystem, because as Seth was mentioning, it sounds like that's about 80% of their business, because obviously NetSuite's been scaling a lot the last number of years. And I've always been very amazed to see how well their product has done being built inside of NetSuite and being on platform. You'd think that would restrict them and provide a lot of limitations in terms of what they can do, and the fact that they have to abide by all of NetSuite's rules and what you have to do to. There's just various limitations whenever you build something inside of someone else's platform. But the benefits have seemed to far outweigh the downsides in doing that. Being able to have everything be real time, not have to manage an integration, being able to leverage NetSuite's coding languages and visibility into inventory and everything in a real time way has just allowed them to just be a far superior solution for most customers that are working inside of the NetSuite platform. And from what it sounds like, they're also continuing to innovate to larger and larger customers. I don't really know of many other vendors in the NetSuite ecosystem that have over 2,000 customers and 2,000 clients. That is a huge number, and that really is proven success. So the stability and ability for a customer to implement their solution and know that it does work for most all of the normal things that normal clients do with warehouse management, inventory, and shipping is very impressive. So it was great to see an overview of that from Seth himself.
I agree. I mean, the fact that they've got, let's call it 2,000 companies in the NetSuite space running RF Smart is a testament to their ability to execute. And I've had many companies running RF Smart and I've had good experiences. And like I said earlier, I mean, the risk, if that implementation goes south, I mean, obviously you can keep doing what you're doing, but it can cause business interruptions, big ones, that hit revenue, that hit cost of goods sold. And you don't want that. So you need a trusted name. You need someone who has good deep feature functionality. So what I like too is not only do they have that reputation, to be able to execute, but it's a good solution for your first WMS or as you scale. I didn't know how deep they got into some of the robotics, and that's great to see. I mean, if you're coming off QuickBooks and you need your first WMS, they're there for you all the way to, some of the examples we saw in that video. So I love that, they can execute, they're going to scale with you. And they're focused, right? I mean, to their point, they could be across every ERP, but instead they said, look, let's focus on the ones that we're experts in and make sure we do the best job within those. So I think that's all positive.
I really like that analogy of, these ERP systems are a mile wide and an inch deep. And that is so true. Sometimes they'll release additional modules from these ERP vendors that just, you wonder how they got away with releasing a module that was that basic. It's so little depth in the beginning, and then they continue to improve it over time. But having both a product and a team that really go deep and know their stuff is so important. One other point I wanted to mention too is what Seth said is, as long as NetSuite scales, their solution can scale with NetSuite. And like any big ERP platform, especially cloud-hosted platforms, they can be in a position where they have to build their solution for maybe the 95% of customers that are using their solution. And if you're outside of that, let's say you're doing 5,000 plus orders per day that you're shipping out of your warehouse, that's a lot of orders. And you would really need to evaluate that the set of solutions that you put in place are not going to slow you down due to platform limitations of how long it takes to integrate back or how long it takes to update something. And customers that we've seen that have used other products or other sort of tier one external WMS platforms that are built for really big business have either those super complex use cases or they've got such high volume that it's just so difficult to try to transact on the NetSuite platform for every single transaction. So it's been interesting to observe that in the ecosystem as well.
Well said. Well said. Okay. Well, I think it's been another great episode of Talk Sassy to Me. Like us, love us, subscribe to us, and we'll see you next time.